Today we're going to talk about Marketing 102. So, for those of you that don't know, I actually did a Marketing 101 session on farming uh, a couple weeks ago. It was recorded and it will be made available through Excel. It wasn't there yesterday when I checked, but all of these will be done through Excel as a learning path. So, we're going to be having Marketing 101, 102, 103, 104. This one that we're doing today is going to be on online marketing. It's not super comprehensive, but I'm going to kind of pick my battles with what I talk about today, just some of the important things. We may do supplementary seminars in here. I might throw a 105 in at the end if we need to talk about some extra stuff. But then we've got 103. It's going to be Sphere of Influence Marketing. It's on September 10th at 10 a.m. And then Marketing 104 is going to be about marketing your listings and strategies for that. And that's going to be on September 30th at 10 a.m. These are all done hybrid, so they'll be at the Kingston office, but they'll also be online through Zoom. So those links will go out to everybody as per usual, 15 minutes before. Okay, so online marketing I've got just for those of you that don't know, I actually ran a marketing company for several years before getting into real estate. So this is kind of my background. Online marketing is a very large topic. So again, I'm going to try and pick my battles a bit, and I'm going to start by talking about the kind of like lowest hanging fruit of things that you can do as an agent. But for online marketing, it generally falls into three categories of initiatives. One will be your CRM focused online marketing, one will be branding, and one will be online leads. So CRM is stuff that's focused towards your CRM, your sphere of influence. Branding is more trying to establish your brand, put your name out there, your face out there, and get people to know you and recognize you. I put a lot of common like very recognizable brand logos up here. These companies do a lot of brand advertising out there. And because they do that, you probably recognize every single one of those. So that's kind of what brand marketing is trying to get your face, your name out there. So you become like a known quantity in the area that you're doing brand marketing for. People recognize your face and your name and they associate it with real estate. And finally, I'm going to talk about online leads a bit too. And sometimes people kind of mix the branding with the online leads a bit. So I want to try and separate that out a little bit. Online leads is where you have an online, well, we'll get into the details of it, but generally if you have a website or something which has a call to action to get someone to sign up to leave their contact information, right? That information comes into you, into your CRM, and you've got someone who's potentially interested in real estate that you can pick up the phone and give them a call and nurture them into business. All right. So the strategies and goals, I guess I've kind of gone over this a little bit already, but for the CRM, and it's important when you're looking at any sort of online marketing strategy to think about what your strategies and your goals are, because a lot of times people just take mud and sling it against the wall and hope it sticks and don't really have much of a strategy. So it's important to know exactly what your purpose and your goal is with any sort of online marketing strategy that you implement. So CRM, the primary goal for marketing your CRM is to engage your sphere of influence, right? So the people that you know, the people that are like quote unquote your like client base. The goal with engaging your sphere with online marketing is to capitalize on opportunity, right? Create those conversations, get in front of them, create touch points so that if there is that chance that they're planning on buying or selling, they're going to include you in the conversation because you've been having touch points that you're reminding them that you're in real estate. Branding is, again, I mentioned it not too long ago, it's to increase brand awareness. And the goal of increasing brand awareness is to have people start calling you, right? The equivalent with physical media is if you have a billboard, people see that billboard all the time. They'll be like, okay, hey, like I see Linus's billboard all the time. He must be a successful realtor. I'm going to give him a call and get him to come and do a listing presentation. So people will ultimately start associating you with real estate. So they'll call you if you do branding. Brand marketing. Brand marketing tends to be a lot more expensive and it takes a lot longer to build a brand, but ultimately like that's the best way to reach that really highest level of being a realtor. Online leads, you're prospecting for online clients. So you're generally paying to get people to come into your website to give you their information so you have people to call who are somewhat interested in real estate. Similar to cold calling, but you know that everybody on the other line, when you call them, they've at least expressed some interest in real estate. They've looked at listings, or maybe they want a free market evaluation, something along those lines, right? So these are the three pipelines that you look at when you're talking about online marketing. So just some of the activities that you do, and this is by no means a comprehensive list. I put a few things up here, and we're not going to talk about all of them today. I'm just going to kind of pick and choose what we chat about. But for CRM, the biggest things, social media, there's a very big common misconception about what social media is for. And we're going to be talking about this in detail today. But social media's primary goal is to engage with your friend group, right? Your CRM. But also CRM online marketing could include everything like email, newsletters, email touches. We're going to be talking about that in like marketing 103 a bit more about marketing to your CRM. So we're not going to be focusing too much on e-newsletters, email touches today. We're going to be talking a lot about social media though. The next pipeline is branding. Branding is your website, which is kind of like your online business card. There's also tag marketing, which a lot of you probably don't even know what that is. So I'm going to go into that in a little bit detail. And social media paid advertising to get your brand up there. That's another branding activity. And just remember, that's different than the typical stuff you do on social media, which is pushing stuff out to your sphere of influence, the people that you're friends with and your followers. Social media paid advertising is getting it out to like a region, right? Like you maybe all of Kingston, you're trying to promote your face and your real estate career and like that kind of thing. But that's typically paid ads it's for people that you don't necessarily follow. You don't know who you are. Online leads. This is where Leads 21 is something I'll be talking about a little bit in this presentation as well. It's a program that we have set up for making it really easy for you to start cultivating online leads and acquiring them. But generally, it's just where you're talking about Google ads, social media ads with call to action to like come to like a free market evaluation or to try and get like all the listings in Hamilton that are under $700,000 to get like a list of that. And for those call to actions, you exchange that information for their contact information, right? You can have landing pages as well for these kinds of things like free home evaluations, market reports, that kind of stuff, as well as MLS searches, which would typically be on your website. All of the goals of all of those things is to try and drive those online leads to fill out a leads capture form. So that's the kind of high level or low level bit of all this. The next thing I want to talk about is anytime that you're starting to develop an online marketing strategy, you want to think about the return on investment and how much time and money any of these initiatives are going to take. And a lot of people don't put that thought process into it. They just jump into something without really thinking about it. Be like, oh, I need to do social media. Like I'm just going to start doing it. But you don't realize that time sink or the money pit that you might be getting into. And most of the time, these are valuable uses of your time and money, but there are finite resources, right? Generally, as a new agent, you tend to have more time and less of an income stream, less money. And then when you're a more successful agent, you tend to have more money, but less time because you're so busy running around with clients. So when you're trying to develop whatever your marketing strategy is, it's important to look at, okay, like how much money, how much time do I have? And how much of that do I want to allocate to these things? Like where is my money and time best used? So everything falls onto this graph. And like, this is like obviously like a big gray area thing, but some things that don't take much money or time, like e-newsletters that we write for you, that you just send out to your sphere of influence. It's like literally you set it up and it just happens automatically. We've got a website for you. It's just set up automatically, set up there, right? Email touches are pretty low lifts in terms of time and money. Social media, doing posts on your social media that doesn't cost a lot of money, but it's a little bit more time consuming. Then getting into the real time consuming, you're talking about like podcasting, blogging, content creation. That can take a lot of time, but doesn't usually cost too much money. It can cost money too, depending on how you do it. Then on the other side of the coin, you've got things that cost a lot of money, but maybe a lot less time. Advertising is typically right on there. Like any sort of brand advertising usually takes a lot more money, a lot less time. And then I do want to point out, because a lot of people jump to this right away and it's not always necessarily the best decision. Online leads, they take a lot of money because you have to pay to acquire them, and they take a lot of time to nurture. So it is a lot of time and money. That being said, it can be a very useful and a very solid pipeline of business, but just be prepared for that. And a lot of people jump into, say, online leads without considering the fact that it does take a lot of both of those things. The first things I'm going to talk about are social media and websites. So social media, again, this is just the organic stuff that agents are posting, and website, just working on that free website that we give you, or maybe you pay a third party to like set up your website for you. But the reason I want to talk about those first is because they are the lowest hanging fruit. So if you're a newer agent, or you're just kind of like, you haven't really put much thought into your online marketing, these are the two places that are great to start. They tend to take not a lot of time or money, and it's just the easiest thing to get into without having to dive deep with a really in-depth strategy for them. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is an agent website. And the reason I've got a picture of a rabbit next to a rabbit hole with a danger sign, I'm sure a lot of you are wondering, why does he have this graphic up here? It's because it can be a very dangerous rabbit hole to get into, especially with a new agent when you don't have a lot of business coming in. I've seen agents spend like months just sitting there stressing over every little aspect of every pixel of their website, and this isn't something that you need to do, right? If you're going to start working on your website, you need to focus on what the purpose of your website is and just stick to the basics. Don't try and overthink it. The biggest thing I do want to say is there are a lot. This picture here is from one of my favorite books when I was a kid. It was Where's Waldo? There's this one page in this book that you always had to try and find Waldo amongst a bunch of characters and stuff, and like it was kind of like a hide and seek for finding Waldo, this guy in the white and red stripes. There's this one page that I had in the book where it was like from the land of Waldos, where they're all dressed the same. You're looking for one who's missing a sock or something like that. And it was like the hardest image to find, like that Waldo of all the Waldo books. But I like this graphic because it really emphasizes something. There's a lot of realtors out there, right? There's 80,000 plus realtors in Ontario, and everyone, probably all of them, if not all of them, like most of them would have a website. So it's really hard now to have your website generate organic traffic, right? If someone Googles Toronto real estate, there's a very good chance you're probably on page 30, right, of the Google results, especially if you're newer into the industry. And just trying to get yourself up to that top spot would be next to impossible. And it's really generally not worth the effort. We're going to talk about it a little bit later. Like, you can pay to get to the top, which is probably better use of your time. But just remember that when you're getting into this, don't really stress over it. That shouldn't be your goal of your first initial website when you're putting it up. You don't need to create all of this organic traffic. That's not what the goal of your initial website for. What most people come to your website for is actually just people vetting you, right? Like, people just want to see that you're a real estate agent who has some sort of activity, has a good brand presence, looks professional, right? Like, if someone is going to call you on that billboard ad, or like, saw your for sale sign down the street, they're probably going to Google you first. That's how, like, anyone does it. They'll Google to see if you have any reviews, see what your website looks like. So most people come to the website, they're people that are vetting you. So just keep that in mind. Like, the things that you want on your website is more like an online business card, right? It gives information about you, but your primary goal on this online business card should be about, okay, the information, but also talking about your value and your brand, right? Have a great, maybe you have like a video up there about some stuff you've done this in the city, just kind of like you interacting with clients, like maybe like a little bit of about you, some pictures of you doing like, real estate things, like whatever it is, like your identity, your brand. Everyone has a different identity and a different brand. So it's important to make sure that it's something that you resonate with and something that's true to who you are. Don't feel like you have to fit into like that box of what a realtor should look like, because realistically you should fit into the box of what you feel you should look like, right? And that's how you're going to succeed and thrive in this industry. So I'm going to use one of our agents as a great example. If you look up Anna Shirazi's website, she does a really good job of this. It's anna.ca, I think is the website there. But if you look up Anna Shirazi, she's got a really great online web page presence, and you'll notice, like, she's the top agent, our top team at our brokerage. It's right up front, just all about the brand, all about the identity. Yeah, there's some other things in there too, but the primary goal and the primary purpose of her website is conveying what she's about and what her team's about. And that's what you should really focus on when working on your website to start. That being said, and be careful, because this is where the rabbit hole starts coming in. It's great to have secondary things in your website. You can use your website to generate online leads. You can pay for Google Ads to drive people to your listing search, your home evaluation pages, like all the leads capture stuff. But that shouldn't necessarily be your primary goal. And a lot of agents will have your your kind of online business card web page, which is more about you and your brand. And then they'll also have like their leads capture website, which is completely different. And again, this is something that Leads 21 can help with. If you want to work the online lead side of it, don't necessarily even focus on having your main web page have all these lead capture methods. You do want to have some. If I mean, we provide them for you anyway, so you might as well have them there. But don't stress over trying to pipe so much traffic from online leads generation to your website if there is another source which would do this better. And again, like Leads 21 is a good example of this. If you want to do the online leads thing, that's a lot more cost-effective method of doing that. And paying for online leads versus trying to get them organically is a much better value time proposition, because trying to get yourself up, and don't get me wrong, like I know a lot of people do this, you can get a lot of organic traffic coming in, but it can be very time consuming. And, speak to your manager, give me a call. We can chat about those kinds of strategies. But in general, like it should be really well thought out, and you'll have to have something fairly unique to bring people in and not just something that everybody else has out there. So just some things you can put in as secondary goals. Again, online lead generation, some sort of call to action capture things, home evaluations, MLS listing searches that if they click on it, they have to fill out information to capture the lead there. You can do blogging, neighborhood information, video content. This is all great stuff. And don't get me wrong, it's not something you should totally avoid. I'm just trying to say, don't fall into the rabbit hole of spending way too much time at the sacrifice of other things that you're doing. So again, there's nothing wrong with having more than one website, right? I know a lot of agents who their secondary website for leads capture, they keep the branding to a minimum. It's actually been shown that if you have less personal presence on leads capture website, that there's a higher chance those leads will actually convert. They feel, I guess, less pressured or whatever it is to like fill out that leads capture form. So they don't feel like, like Linus is like in their face trying to get them to rope them in. It feels a little bit more I guess nebulous might be the word for it. So again, these are the things to think about. There's organic versus paid, right? Organic is like just your website, putting it all out there. Paid is actually paying for people to come to your website through Google Ads, Facebook ads, which is a lot more targeted, usually towards generating online leads. And again, that's the thought here is just focus on the branding when you're working on your website to start with. The leads capture, you can set up a separate leads capture website. You can blend the two together, but you just have to think about what the strategy is there so you're not wasting a lot of time. Okay, so that's the website discussion. The next low-hanging fruit I want to talk about is social media. And a lot of agents do this wrong or could do it better, right? And there's nothing wrong necessarily with doing it wrong. Like if you're doing social media at all, that's always a good thing. But I want to try and get everyone to rethink their strategy. And that's one of my goals here today. So again, when you look at anything, you want to think first about, okay, what are the goals of what I'm doing here? And a lot of agents don't think about this, right? They're like, okay, I just need to post to social media because everyone else is doing it. But you need to think about why you're doing it, and that can influence like what you're doing, right? So for social media, your goal should not be to be an influencer. You don't need millions of followers. You don't need to be like that next viral sensation. Like, sure, it can help if you are. It's great for branding and everything, but it's not easy. Not everyone can just become an influencer on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, whatever platform you decide to use. What you should really be thinking about is social media. Who is your audience? Who are your friends, your followers? They're people probably from your sphere of influence, right? Your friends, your family, your past clients, people that you know out in the community. So your goal should be thinking that, okay, these are CRM touch points, right? Sphere of influence touch points. I'm pushing my content to remind them, that I'm in the real estate world. And the other thing you gotta be careful about is overdoing that side of thing. We'll talk about that in a bit. You want to make sure you don't over promote the fact that you're a realtor, that you got listings, whatever, because people will engage less with you. You want to make sure that the final goal, and this is probably your primary goal actually, should be that you want to get people to engage with your posts. I know that, probably everyone talking here or watching this today, if you haven't put up like a just listed post, because maybe you're a new agent, you haven't had a listing yet, but those just listed, just sold posts, they don't tend to get nearly as much engagement, comments, likes, that kind of thing, as a more organic post, which might be about, your dog or your family, or like I was talking to Silly about before, like my whitewater rafting video that I put up over the weekend, right? So your goal should be engagement, because the more people that are engaging with your stuff, the more they're going to get more of your stuff. Talk about that a little bit more in a second. So the next several slides, I actually took a chunk from a previous seminar that I did called Social Media Reprogramming. This is before I was even licensed as a realtor. I did a lot of social media consulting and coaching of agents. So this is just some of those slides here, just to, again, to make you rethink exactly what social media should be all about. So social media, and it always struck me as odd getting into real estate about how amazing realtors can be at selling houses and cultivating relationships, but how poor a lot of agents could be at social media, right? And it's, you think that they would be very similar skill sets because they're developing relationships, getting in front of people, but that's just in reality not the case. So again, this is something that just never made too much sense to me. I mean, I get it. Everyone's busy, doesn't have a lot of time. But the fact that, hopefully if I can get you rethink about this a little bit, how you're attacking your social media strategy, this may help, make it a bit more of like an obvious connection of what you should be doing on the social media side of things. So realtors typically, and a lot of realtors and a lot of people on this call probably do social media right. So don't get me wrong when I say this stuff. I'm just saying in general, realtors tend to look at social media the wrong way. It's not just free advertising. It's not a posting board for all of your stuff, right? Like, yeah, you put just listed, just sold, all my open houses, all this, like I'm doing this, I'm doing that in real estate. You have to remember that it's not just about shameless self promotion. It's not all about you and your business. It's not just a free advertising board for you. If you treat it like that, you're going to get less engagement on all your posts, and those posts just aren't going to be served up to people. Facebook, Instagram, all these platforms, TikTok, they've got great algorithms, which they know that if they put good posts that are going to be engaged in front of people, they'll get more traction. So they look at, hey, like how much engagement, how many comments are happening on all of Linus's posts, which ones tend to get more activity. Those are the ones we're going to put in front of people, right? So if you just keep doing like a sounding board for stuff that people aren't going to be engaging with, a lot of those sphere of influence people that you have, your friends, your followers, they're not even going to see the stuff because Facebook isn't going to put it in front of them because they know that it's not going to get a lot of traction. So anyways, I want everyone to I need a clean slate here. So just try and wipe your mind of any sort of preconceived notions you have about social media. So I want to start from scratch. Pretend like today's the first day you heard the word social media. So to start with, I want to say, okay, what is social media at its core, right? And it's essentially a gigantic social event, not in person, it's virtual. And it's gigantic because it's essentially the whole world, right? So just think about it like a social event. If you're going to a party, like this looks like a little bit of a cocktail hour or whatever that I've thrown up on the screen here. You have to think about, hey, if you're the person you're trying to attract people to come over and talk to you, what kind of activities would you do? Right? You want to be that interesting person who's got interesting stories, that person who's funny, engaging, fun to talk to, right? And that's essentially what you want to do in a social media environment as well. You want to be that person that people gravitate towards in a social setting. It's not physical, but it does translate very, very similarly to the virtual setting. The one thing that you want to really, really avoid is being that annoying kid at the party, that person that like no everyone just tries to like actively avoid, or and maybe you're like politely avoid them. You're just trying to like keep your distance from George over there because you're like, oh man, I don't want to like hear George talk about how great he is all the time. He's just annoying to talk to. So you don't want to be that person. And that's what a lot of realtors fall into that trap of. Like if I was, if I wasn't in real estate and I was following realtors, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's Linus's posts about all this real estate stuff again. Like I don't want to see that. I want to see more about like what my friends are up to, right? So just remember that no one likes someone who only talks about themselves. Yes, it's okay to talk about yourself, but you want to make sure that's not the primary focus, right? And if you are talking about yourself or whatever you've been up to, you want to make sure that they're engaging, fun stories. You want to be just like Will Ferrell in this picture here. You want to be the life of the party, right? That person that everyone wants to comment on their posts. They want to engage with. They want to talk to. They want to follow you. They want to see your stuff. And in order to be that person, you got to really think about the stuff that you're putting up there on social. So how do you make yourself more interesting? Tell stories, share experiences, right? That's what it's all about. It's not always, you don't always have to post just about real estate. You want to kickstart a conversation. And you also, and this is really important too, you want to be interested in what others have to say as well. It's not just about posting, it's about engaging. And well, before I get into the next step, I do want to say though, and maybe I should put this at the very top, social media isn't for everybody. Don't feel pressured to engaging in having a social media strategy. I know a ton of successful realtors that maybe they have a Facebook profile, maybe they have a TikTok account, whatever, but they just don't even worry about it. Right? This is just one pipeline, it's one funnel, it's one touch point. There's a strategy for everybody, and maybe social media just isn't your cup of tea, it isn't your jam, and that's okay. Okay, so don't feel like you have to do social media because a lot of other people are. Just evaluate your own individual situation and go from there. So I'm going to break down this I talk generally about social media. I'm going to break it down into top 10 tips for social media. And yes, there's only 6 tips here, but top 6 doesn't sound nearly as good as top 10. And I did actually have a few others, but I axed them for the sake of time and also just for the context here. But the 10 the 6, I guess, I'm going to talk about is limiting self promotion. I talked about this a little bit already, but limiting self promotion, rethinking your post, engaging with your audience, video, which is very important, being time efficient, and choosing your platform. Okay. So if you just think about these 6 ideas, it's a good start for setting up that social media strategy. Tip number 1, and I put it at the top because it's really important. I've already talked about it a little bit. You want to limit self promotion. The analogy I usually use from this is when I was a kid growing up in the 80s, right? I loved Transformers, was one of like my favorite cartoons, right? I would watch Transformers like every morning before school, and about 90% of the time I sat there in front of the TV watching Transformers, it was Transformers. It was the content, right? The content I wanted to see. Then 10%, 15%, whatever it was commercials, right? And no one likes commercials, generally speaking, but you suffer through the commercials. You suffer through that 10, 15, 20% of commercials because you know that that 80% of content is what you're there for and you're okay with that, right? It's the exact same thing on Facebook. People can suffer through 10, 20% of like shameless self promotion stuff if most of the stuff that you're giving them is good content, right? It doesn't even have to be about real estate, right? People want to see what your interests are. Maybe you're into hockey, so you post about your hockey team. Maybe it's a family, or your pets, your kids, like some sort of trip that you did, a vacation that you did, like whatever it is. That's what people come to social media to do, is to stay in touch with people, see what people's lives are up to. Then you can filter in like, that extra 10, 20%, which is the shameless self-promotion stuff. And people are okay with that. And if you do that, people are going to be engaging with your posts more often. And that means that they're going to be getting more of that shameless self-promotion stuff because the Facebook Google, algorithm is going to be bubbling up your stuff to the top because everyone's like, yeah, we do love looking at Sylvia's stuff because I've been engaging, commenting on all her stuff. So they're going to start feeding me more of Sylvia's content. Okay. So there's a general rule of thumbs that you might hear out there: 80, 20, 90, 10. Yeah, that's 80% content, 20% shameless self-promotion. There's no real strict rule to this. Just you want to keep it to a minimum. Okay, limit the self-promotion side of things. That being said, you can take these shameless self-promotion posts and you can turn them into something more interesting to take them out of one bucket and put them into the other that people want to see. You're getting that promotion in there, but it's not the stuff that people don't want to see. It's not really a commercial so much. You're making it the content. It's almost like throwing in, I can't remember what they call it, a product placement, right, into like a post. So like you get the little realtor stuff in there. It's not really what it's about, but then they see that you're doing realtor-ish stuff, so they remember that you're in real estate, anyways. So to give you some examples of this, very, very common post, just listed post, right? You see them all the time. I just picked a few out of a hat here. You've seen these a billion times. Picture a house, just listed, new listing, your contact information. These are fine, but you can do them better. And I do want to say, you gotta be careful because you can get into a bit of a time sink here if you do all the things I say. So sometimes you just need to get the post out there. Putting up a new just listed post is perfectly fine. But if you take some more interesting strategies, you can get these shameless promotion posts and turn them into something that has a lot more engagement, that people will comment on and help you bubble up to the top of the algorithm. I did have a few examples here of just 3 different ideas that I pulled off of social media, various platforms. Again, the platform doesn't matter. It's the content that really matters. The one on the left here, It had to caption, this was for a video. Would you dive in? Right. And people be like, oh, it makes you want to click on it to see, okay, like what's going to happen here, right? So you click on it, and you know what it is? It's a just listed video, right? It shows like it starts with the pool and the nice backyard, the features of the listing, and hey, like now I know that that person's got a new listing. I know they're an agent, and they've asked me a question, so it tends to ask for engagement in terms of comments, likes, that kind of thing. So it's an interesting way of showing that you've got a just listed property. Now they're here too. The Parisian vibes in this North York condo, the one in the middle, right? It got a lot more engagement in this post too, because they're not just showing just let's just sold. They're like, hey, like we've got a bit of map. Like, what do you think about this? Does this give you like those Parisian vibes? It starts to spur conversation. The one on the right here, I really like too. This is a TikTok video. The caption at the start was, "Watch as we light our 201-year-old fireplace, or sorry, as we light our 201-year-old fireplace for the first time in over 57 years." I want to see what happens, right? Like, I'm sure it probably wasn't anything spectacular. I know it wasn't because I watched the video. But the fact that they've got that, which was them doing like that wet inspection, right? And making sure everything was fine. Hey, we've got a listing here. This is just part of it. It was a clever way of showing that they've got a listing, getting people engaged with that post and watch it. And that post did very well as well. So start rethinking. There's no set way of doing this. Like, you have to use your creativity, but go out there and just see what other people are doing, get some ideas, right? There's a lot of realtors out there. Um, Tip number two, and this is something that I'd love to see more of, is, well, more of in a good way, is the tooting your own horn, right? Like, we've got amazing Centurion awards that look like Oscar statues that people love to post if they get them online. That's okay to post that, but just think of a different way of approaching that. And there was an example here of a post that I pulled from a realtor in the States that was talking, like, she was tooting her own horn, saying how successful she was, but it was a bit more of an interesting, engaging, real setup, right? So, just trying to think about how you do it instead of just posting your awards. Like, think about a way that you can kind of like talk about yourself and how you represent your clients really well. You can maybe throw in a bit of your success stories in there as well. And then again, with all this stuff, I want to make sure there's nothing wrong with posting your awards levels. It's great. We do it. I've done it before. You post it up there. It's good to have the content, but if you have the time and you really want to come up with a very successful social media strategy, consider this alternate route. Tip number three, and this is a huge one that a lot of realtors don't think about enough. It's engaging with your audience. Talked about it a little bit already, but if you're posting a lot to social media, make sure you're commenting on other people's posts too. So if you have a post too, if people reply to your post or comment on your post, reply to their comments. The engagement is what helps your stuff bubble up in the algorithm. The more that someone engages with the post, the more it's going to be seen as a popular post, the more people that are going to start seeing in their feeds. Then engaging with other people, you see what your followers are up to, right? Your friends comment about their dog, about their whitewater rafting trip in Ottawa they did last weekend. Engage with them, because remember, social media is touch points, right? It's out there to like have conversations with people, kind of foster and strengthen those relationships. And if you're paying attention to what other people are saying, they're going to have more of an interest in what you're doing as well. This is so, 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 so important. Don't just post and forget. Post, reply, comment. Okay. Another thing that not enough realtors do is video, right? Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I mean, TikTok's like only a video. It's much more effective than photos. Video can give a glimpse into your personality. It takes that static picture and it brings it to life, right? People are a lot more likely to engage with those videos, and a lot of them, in a lot of platforms, they'll auto play as well, right? So you'll start to see a little bit of you in action, whatever it is you're doing. So if you have a post, you could do a picture for it. Think about, can I just do a short 5-10 second clip instead? Is there an opportunity for that? And one thing I do want to say too is, if you can, make sure you caption your videos. I can't remember what the number is, but something silly like 90% of videos that people watch, it's on their phone and they've got it muted, right? They're probably sitting in this training right now. I'm sure a bunch of you are probably scrolling your social medias, watching videos as we speak, right? But having captions is very important to make sure that people can get whatever content it is. If it's important that they, and if they can't hear you, they can see what it's about, to make sure that's in the form of a caption. All the platforms have a simple captioning system, or you can use something like CapCut. which is an online video editor, which is amazing. It's kind of like Canva, but for editing posts online or editing video. It's really easy to add captions to your videos. So it's definitely something you should consider if you can. So just some examples of a couple of people that I follow and how they do it right. Here's two Instagram feeds. One's for Jastakar. He's a real estate coach. And then Vonnie Fast, who is a representative for Cutco, who does closing gifts. By the way, Cutco does amazing knives, like personalized for closing gifts. If you want to check out any of that, or you looking for ideas for closing gifts, like just give Vonnie a call. She's amazing. She's got a really good social media presence. She's the number one Cutco rep in all of Canada, and there's a reason for it. She has a really good bit on social. And Jas too, like he's a very successful coach. He knows a lot of these times, like it's about the thumbnail. It's about doing a lot of video. If you look at these are mostly video. It's not even all about self promotion stuff, right? It's more interesting, engaging things. And the reason they're really successful in the social media space is because of what they do. So definitely check out Jas and Vonnie online if you just want to get some ideas of the things they're doing. And it's not even like they're not necessarily in real estate sales too, right? It's just kind of an idea of what they do to get engagement. One thing I definitely want to caution you about, we talked about rabbit holes before. Social media can be a time sink. I'm sure most of you have been there before. You're going on TikTok, Instagram Reels, and you just sit there flicking, watching interesting. The algorithm's so good at giving you stuff you want to see, you can waste hours, right? And that's okay if that's what you want to do. But if you're talking about doing this for business, you need to be time efficient. The thing I always say is, set 20 minutes aside in the day. Maybe it's like, during breakfast, you sit down with your bowl of cereal, whatever it is, you go through and you do maybe 10 comments, right? Just be like, hey, I'll do 10 comments a day on things that people have commented on my posts, other people's posts. You set a bit of a routine for your commenting, your engagement strategy. And the same thing for posting, right? You don't get sucked in that time sink of, everything has to be absolutely perfect. Or if you're doing video, one good strategy for video is set a video session where you sit down, maybe you talk in front of the camera, you spend maybe a morning doing all your social clips for the month, right? It's a little bit easier to do that, be time efficient, get it all done for the month in like a morning, as opposed to just being like, hey, I got to post 3 times a week, like a little video. So like every third day you're sitting there trying to like, okay, what am I gonna do for social? You do your clip, you edit it, you send it out, maybe you don't edit it, whatever. It becomes a lot less time efficient if you have to like start over with that setup every time. Whereas if you can do it all at the beginning of a month or you're beginning your week, create all the posts. You don't have to post them right away, right? You schedule your posts or you post them throughout the week. You generate all the content together. It becomes a lot more time efficient. That being said, there's always going to be those sporadic moments where like this would make a great clip. I'm going to take a video here. That's fine. But if there's any sort of curated content that you're putting together, think about how you're doing it, because you will not use your time efficiently if you don't have a plan or a strategy for that. I've got a lot of the agents in the office here in Kingston. They've started implementing that, right? They'll have a podcast or like a video they do it once a month, and they use clips from that to pepper through their social. That's something myself and Aaron have been doing from a company level as well. We've been recording podcasts every 2 weeks, and we take clips from those, and those become our social media content. It's a much more time effective way of generating video content. And I'll give an example. Another one is Luis Batista, right? And an agent, very successful agent out of our Bradford office. She did a photo shoot near the beginning of the year, which was for social media. They had tons of different outfit changes. They had a photographer come in for a day. They did all of their like Easter, Christmas, Halloween posts. They did all of the photos for the whole year in one day. And so now they've got all the content with a professional photographer all set up. Looks amazing. She does a great job of it. But she doesn't have to do it every month. She just did it once for the year and it's set. She doesn't have to worry about it for the rest of the year for that content that she's pushing out. So just try and think about how you can be time efficient. Next thing too is choose your platform. You don't have to be everywhere. I see a lot of times people like, oh, I gotta have a Facebook account, I got a LinkedIn, TikTok account, like YouTube, Snapchat, like everything. It's like, no, just pick one or two that have maybe the ones that you use the most or the demographic that you want to chase being on those platforms, right? Just pick the two and just be awesome at those two, right? You don't have to do all of them. It becomes overwhelming if you need to have a lot of different social media. I mean, we have Back at You Media, which helps with pushing out things to multiple places. But if you're sitting down in the morning, you're commenting 10 things on Facebook, 10 things on Instagram, 10 things on TikTok, right? Like it just becomes too much, and it becomes diminishing returns on your time. So just pick a platform or two. That's all you need to do. Even just pick one. Don't overextend. Okay, so those are the lowest hanging fruit conversations. I'm going to speed things along. There's only a couple more things I want to talk about. And again, it's just not enough time today to talk about everything for online marketing. So I'm picking my battles here. One thing I did want to talk about a little bit is tag marketing, because a lot of people sitting on this call probably don't even know what that is. So tag marketing, sometimes it's called retargeted ads. I'm just going to explain how it works. Then I'm going to talk about how to take advantage of it. So, I mean, you've all been exposed to tag marketing. You probably just didn't know it. So if you visit a website, let's say you're going on Wayfair, right? And Wayfair, for those of you who don't know, it's like an online furniture store, kind of like Amazon, but like for furniture. I do it all the time. I'll go in, I'll be looking for a couch, whatever it happens to be. And then you're like, okay, like you look for your thing, but you moved on with your day. Right? You visited their website, then you go and do other things. Maybe you're going to, search, your social media stuff. Maybe you're going to look on Amazon for X, Y, or Z. You're going to go to Home Depot's website for something else. Or maybe you're just, scrolling through YouTube and trying to catch some videos on, real estate training or whatever it happens to be. So with tag marketing, the first step is you visited Wayfair's website and you searched for a specific product, and Wayfair tagged you. They know exactly what you did, and they send a signal to Google saying, okay, we've got a person who visited our website and they're interested in sofas. So we want you to push some ads to them when they're on different people's websites, because Google ads show up on everyone's websites. But when you load up that Home Depot webpage that may have like a Google ad in the corner, right? Google served ad, Google will be like, okay, that person's visited Wayfair. Wayfair says that they want to push more ads about sofas to them. So they'll put an ad in that corner about whatever product it was that I was looking at. It may be the exact product I was looking at, right? And then that product will follow me around. They'll keep retargeting me for all these other websites that I go to. And that's extraordinarily powerful marketing. It doesn't cost a ton, which is surprising. And it can translate really well into real estate. So for the real estate side of things, if someone visits your website, maybe it's through like an online leads generation that you were doing, right? You paid for Google ads to pull people into your site. You can pull them in your site. You can tag them, be like, this person's looking at real estate on my website. Then when they start going to Home Depot's website, they start Googling other things, your brand advertising will pop up and be served in front of them. This picture here is just an example of different kind of banner ads that may pop up, but you'll start to be getting put in front of them tens, hundreds of times over and over again. And people will be like, oh man, like who's this Linus Kilius guy I keep seeing, right? And because they were also people that were looking at real estate, it definitely makes it so that they're the kind of people that are also interested somewhat in real estate. So it's the kind of person you want to get your ads in front of. So this is brand marketing at its finest. Brand marketing is about repetition, right? You want to see the person over and over and over again. And that's exactly what tag marketing does. Just to give you a bit of an idea on rough costs, about $50 will take 100 unique visitors to your site, or people that, like, you can also do this with Facebook. So people have engaged with your posts, like that kind of thing. And they can take those 100 people and they can show them about 50 ads a month of you when they're just going through and doing their regular web browsing. So that's about 5,000 ad impressions targeted towards these 100 people. And that's about $50 a month. So this is a pretty low lift brand marketing strategy. So tag marketing, it goes really well. Like a lot of people like, how do I set this up? Like, how would I do this? Tag marketing, you can actually do it with Leads 21 program. I'm not going to get into Leads 21 program too much, but if you wanted to jump into online leads, or you're already in the Leads 21 program, you can activate tag marketing for this program, and it gets you really easily into starting up this tag marketing scenario. There are companies out there that do it for you. It's something that you can't just start yourself. You have to have a Google partner to set up tag marketing for you. There are companies out there. If you're interested in this though, just reach out to me. I can help set you up on that side of things. The last thing I want to talk about is the online lead stuff. And I'm not going to go too much into it. I'm going to explain basically what online leads are. And then I'm going to talk also about our Leads 21 program, because that generally is what I would suggest if you want to dabble in online leads, on how to get into it, because it's the most cost-effective solution. So online leads, at the very core, you generally pay for ads to bring people to a landing page, a website, something where there's a hook, right? And that hook asks for contact information in exchange for whatever that nugget is that you're giving. So it might be your home evaluation, a list of listings, a property search, whatever it is. They'll fill out the contact information form, and then you've captured the lead. You've captured that fish, right? That comes into us, that name and contact information comes into a CRM, and then your job would be to follow up and nurture that lead that comes in. So it's like cold calling, but it's targeted because people who come in, they're interested in whatever it is that you're providing to them, that nugget, that hook. This can happen organically too, but the most cost effective, time effective way of doing it is just paying for Google Ads, Meta Ads to make sure that you get in front of people. Like I said, 80,000 realtors, people are Googling homes for sale in Hamilton. Chances are you're not coming up to the top. But if you pay for Google Ads, it's a pretty cost effective way to make sure you jump ahead of people who spent hours and hours and hours, thousands of hours trying to get organically to the top of Google. One thing I do want to caution people about online leads, lot of time and money. They're top right of this graph. So just make sure you know what you're getting into. We do have extensive trainings. That's why I'm not going to go into too much detail here on the Leads 21 program. It's a QR code on the screen that takes us to the Excel. That takes you to the Excel platform, which goes over our Leads 21 course. And the nice thing about Leads 21 course, it talks about leads and online leads in general, talks about doing that return on investment analysis, talks about, our online leads right for me. It goes through all of those thought process that you need to do before jumping into an online leads platform. And if you don't have to use Leads 21, it's just a tool that we give you. It's a very cost-effective way of getting into leads, but it helps go through the thought process of is this the right strategy for me? The last thing about online leads I want to say though, is it's a long-term commitment. Don't jump in online leads expecting you're going to get business right away. It's very similar to brand advertising. It takes time for it actually to kind of come through and turn into business in the end. It takes 6 to 12 months for an online lead on average to turn into a transaction. Sometimes it can be faster. Sometimes they can be a lot longer than 12 months, right? That's just the average. So if you just jump in for a month, be like, hey, I spent a lot of money, it doesn't work. That's not an accurate representation of how an online leads platform can work for you. If you jump into it, you want to make sure you commit for at least a year financially, as well as from a time standpoint, before you make the decision whether or not you want to jump into online leads. It's really important to do a return on investment analysis. I talk about this in Leads 21 seminars that we do on the Excel platform. And again, if you want to chat about it, I'm happy to sit down with you. Any of your management team would be happy to sit down with you and talk about whether online leads are right for you and do that return on investment analysis for you as well. Because you only have a finite amount of time and a finite amount of money. So you got to make sure you're using them properly.